Welcome back to Classy and Sassy. I'm your host, Erica Regina. Have you noticed that at a certain point, we start having less urgency to react, to explain, or to prove anything to people about the things we do, say, or think? That's probably the simplest way I can describe what I've been feeling lately. And I don't know if it's age, experience, or just life, but something has definitely shifted. Things that used to bother me don't hit the same. Situations that used to require a response, they just get silence. I don't feel that overwhelming need to explain myself anymore. And it's not coming from a place of being cold or disconnected. It's actually coming from a place of peace. Do you have any idea how much time we waste stressing about how other people might react to how we feel, or worrying about whether we actually had the nerve to set and stick to our own boundaries? And that's what I want to talk about today. This shift in energy. What emotional maturity really looks like, and how sometimes growth shows up quietly, not loudly. Because I think a lot of us are experiencing this shift, but we don't always have the language for it. And as crazy as it might sound, we don't need to make an announcement for people to realize we're no longer explaining every decision we make. So let's start with something that I think gets misunderstood a lot. Emotional maturity. Emotional maturity versus emotional availability. Because those two things, they're not the same, even though we often treat them like they are. Someone can be emotionally mature. They can communicate well, they can understand feelings, they can say all the right things. But that does not mean they're emotionally available. Because emotional availability is about showing up, not just talking the talk. It's about consistency, effort, action. It's about people knowing they can count on you to do what you say you're going to do. And I think a lot of us have dealt with people who sound emotionally mature, but don't actually show up in a way we can depend on. They make promises, they say the right things, but they don't follow through. And that creates confusion because you're sitting there thinking, well, they understood, so why aren't they doing better? And the truth is, people can know all the right things to say, but saying and doing, two completely different things. You can know exactly how to treat someone properly and still not have the capacity to do it. And that's where a lot of people get stuck, holding on to potential instead of paying attention to patterns. Because potential sounds good, it does, but patterns tell the truth. And communication without action just creates confusion. And when you really start paying attention to patterns instead of potential, it leads you into something else we don't talk about enough. Closure. Because closure is overrated. We've been taught that closure is something we need in order to move on. We need to have a conversation. We need to have an explanation. We need some apology. But the reality is we don't always get that. Sometimes people don't explain. They just disappear. They avoid accountability altogether. And if you sit around waiting for closure from someone who doesn't have the emotional capability to give it to you, you can stay stuck for a very long time. At some point, you have to realize closure is something you can give yourself. It's not about having all the answers. It's about accepting what happened, even if you don't fully understand it. And sometimes the way someone leaves is the closure. Their silence, their inconsistency, their lack of effort. That was an answer. Do you really want to lose sleep over someone who is most likely not losing a wink of sleep over you? Once you accept that, you stop chasing conversations that were never going to give you peace anyways. And once you truly understand that you're not always going to get closure, your energy changes. And let's talk about that energy shift. That's when you start moving differently. Not in a dramatic way, not in a cut everybody off way, but in a peaceful, grounded, intentional way. You can actually stop reacting to everything. You can stop feeling the need to respond immediately. Stop explaining your decisions to people who are not invested in understanding you. And learn to start protecting your energy in a way that feels natural, not forced. Don't argue so much. Don't chase clarity from people. Don't try to correct every single misunderstanding, because you have to realize not everything deserves your energy, and not everyone deserves access to you. And one of the biggest shifts is this. You stop trying to be understood by people who are committed to misunderstanding you. That alone will change your life. Because a lot of emotional exhaustion comes from trying to explain yourself to people who have already decided how they want to see you. And once you let go of that, you can feel 100 times lighter, because you're thinking clearly, you're moving differently. And it's not about whether you care or not about that person. It's about caring about yourself in a more intentional way. That shift doesn't just happen randomly. It comes usually after something that has happened. It comes from experience, from just being tired of being disappointed too often, from giving too much energy to situations that simply didn't deserve your energy. And eventually you just reach a point where you don't want to feel that way anymore. So you change. It may not be overnight, but gradually you start setting boundaries with people without over-explaining. You start choosing peace over proving a point. You start walking away from things that don't feel right without needing validation. And that's growth. And once that shift happens, it doesn't stay contained to one area of your life. It starts affecting everything. And how this changes your life, relationships, friendships, they change. Even how you approach work and opportunities changes. It becomes a lot more selective, because you're going to start tolerating less and valuing your time and energy in a completely different way. Which means ultimately you'll feel more at peace, not because life is perfect, but because you're no longer engaging with everything that used to let drain you. And one of the biggest places you start to notice that change is how you deal with people. Now, let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about people who never make you the priority, but you're making them the priority. Because something else that comes with growth is recognizing when you are consistently not a priority in someone's life. And I'm not talking about someone being busy occasionally. I'm talking about a pattern. Every time you try to connect, they have something going on. Every time you expect consistency, there's an excuse. And at first, you try to be understanding. But eventually, you have to ask yourself, am I being understanding or am I being deprioritized? Because there's a difference. We all have things that's going on. We're all busy, but we all make time for what matters. And if somebody values you, you do not have to compete with everything else going on in their life. They will show up and follow through and be consistent all on their own. And when they're not, they don't just disappear and reappear when it's convenient. A lot of people like to hide behind, I've got a lot going on, because it does sound valid. But the truth is, effort shows. Once you experience the energy shift, you stop making excuses for people. And you stop overextending yourself to accommodate inconsistency. And you start matching energy, not in a petty way, in a peaceful way. Because if someone keeps showing you and showing up for you only when it's convenient for them, you were never a priority. And once you accept that, your decisions become a lot clearer. And once you start protecting your energy like that, you also become more intentional about how you spend your time, including what you're pouring into your mind. If you watched the reality show that I mentioned a while back, Blue Therapy, there's a couple where he is constantly too busy for her. He's always doing something, and his main excuse is he's trying to build this company, he's trying to build this restaurant, he's just so busy. But in a follow-up to them, you find out that she decided to pivot. And she started pursuing a million different things, and now he's realizing how it feels when someone always makes you the very bottom of their priority list. And I hate to say it, but sometimes that's what it takes for someone to realize how they're treating you. The problem with that is, quite often, by the time the other party realizes that, it's too late. So it's imperative that the things you consider priority, the people you consider priority, you show them that and stop making excuses for how many things you have going on. Because you can have a lot more time for all those things if you don't really want to give time and attention to the person asking you for it. So, what am I reading right now? For the Nonfiction Book Club, I am currently reading Untamed by Glennon Doyle. If you have never heard of it, or if you have, you know it's all about self-discovery, breaking out of expectations, and learning to trust yourself. And that's connecting to everything we've been talking about. Choosing yourself, setting boundaries, and living more intentionally. In my fiction book club, yes, I run too, I'm reading Her First Lie by Lucinda Berry. Yes, the book is not quite out, but of course I have an advanced copy. It is out this month. I don't remember which day, but it's out this month, maybe mid-month. So I went ahead and added it as the book club choice because the way the book clubs work, you come and go as you please and discuss the books when you choose to because it's online. So some people discuss all through the month. A lot of people don't even say anything until the end of the month. So it just works for you. If you like a psychological thriller, this is definitely in that lane. Her books always pull you in quickly and keep you questioning everything. So I'm excited to see how this one unfolds because it's, I guess you could say, a prequel to one of her other books. And on the lighter side of things, I found out about a book app that, for some reason, the person with a million book info type things on her phone didn't know about, called Book Buddy. It actually lets you simply scan the barcodes of all of your physical books so that you can actually keep track of what you own, what you've read, and even what you've loaned out to somebody. Because I'm one of those people who absolutely hates when someone borrows a book and I don't get it back. Don't even get me started. Because as I started scanning some of my books, I wanted to just get a little feel for how it worked. I realized there are books that I see someone borrowed and I never got them back. I used to go through a little phase of writing my name in every book. Recently, someone bought me an embosser in case I wanted to emboss them. I'm thinking I may actually get a stamp and stamp them, but this app lets you rate them if you want to, scan them, figure it out, keep up with everything. It even lets you organize them if they're in a series. And it lets you scan at one point and see how many books you have by each author. We're not going to talk about how many I have by James Patterson. That's really irrelevant. But that's what it does. And I'm loving it so far. And let's be honest, if you read a lot, you probably have books everywhere, like I do. Because I have a reading room full of books on the bookshelves, but I also have 2 bookshelves in my home office that are all TBR books. So this is amazing. It keeps up with all of those books that you have in different rooms. Some you've read, some you haven't, some you forgot you even had. Like I said, I started scanning mine today, and I already love the idea of having everything organized in one place. It makes your reading life feel a lot more intentional. And honestly, all of this, the growth, the boundaries, even how we spend our time, it all connects. So if you've been feeling this shift lately, where you don't feel the need to react, explain, or prove anything, just know that you're not becoming distant. You're becoming grounded. You're becoming more aware of what deserves your energy and what does not. And that's a powerful place to be. Because sometimes growth looks like becoming the version of yourself that no longer entertains what once drained you. And as always, thank you so much for being here.